Good morning, everyone. So good to see your faces this morning. We had a good rain last night. It's not slick and icy this morning. And our room is filling up for the state of the economy. So continue to fill your plates. Make sure you have a full cup of coffee. But we're really glad that you're here this morning. I'm really glad that Dr. Perryman is here to talk numbers, and I'm not a numbers person, so especially early in the morning, it's a little bit of a challenge for me, but I brought a joke just to tell you guys about the level of my number sense. How do you divide Rome? Now, I told this joke yesterday, so if I told it to you, don't spoil it for the people around you. How do you divide Rome? Anybody? Well, you use a pair of Caesars. Yeah, okay, now see, you've started your day off with a laugh. We can now move on to the important stuff. This is one of my best duties as mayor, is getting to often welcome people and greet people. But this morning feels more important than just the typical greeting. And even my devotional time this morning was about Deuteronomy chapter 30, where God says you can choose life or death, blessings or curse. And then he tells us to choose life. And it made me think about our room this morning. There's going to be about 300 of us in here. We're going to spend an hour or so educating ourselves about the state of our economy, investing in the city of Amarillo. 300 of us times an hour. We're going to make a 300-hour investment this morning in our economy. To know more about it, to measure it, to study it, shows that we value it. And we do value it. So thank you for the investment of your time this morning, the investment of your energy. I know you're out in our city working hard, but there's some value in us sitting in a room together and getting prepared to all pull in the same direction. I'm grateful for the EDC team and their leader, Kevin Carter, for doing that, creating this event this morning, and for the work that they do in our city day in and day out. Would y'all give Kevin Carter a welcome as he comes to the stage, please?
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor, for that great welcome. It's always great to have Mayor Nelson come and welcome us. We appreciate the work that she does and the council does. We've got it's a great place to live, a great place to be. As I reflect back on last year's event that we had, I remember sitting in the audience and had no idea at the time that a year later that I'd be in Amarillo, Texas as a resident. And it's what a great year it's been, and so excited as a newcomer to Amarillo. This is a great place to be, and you should be really proud of Amarillo and what we have here. And so this morning I want to start out by thanking our sponsors who made this event happen. Underwood Law Firm, NCW Insurance, OJD Engineering, AIM Bank, Happy State Bank, Interstate Bank, First United Bank, First Capital Bank, First Bank Southwest, the Street Auto Group, Western Builders, and Amarillo National Bank. Also, live streaming and audio visual are going to be brought to you by Panhandle PBS this morning. So let's give a warm welcome to those sponsors and thank them. Here's our mission statement that we have, and really I'm not going to read that to you, but the main thing that I get out of that and what I'm so proud of for the Amarillo economy is that we're a diverse economy. 20 years ago, we didn't have quite the diversity. We were so tied to oil and gas, but now, through the efforts of people in this room, we've become a much more diverse economy. When one of those sectors is down, we don't see the hit that we used to when the oil and gas industry would be way down. So we don't see the super highs and super lows. We see a more steady income or steady stream, and that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Our unemployment rate, we're hovering about 1% below the national average. While that's good for our economy, it's also a challenge when it comes to trying to recruit business to Amarillo. And so in just a few minutes, we're going to hear about what we're trying to do to alleviate and grow Amarillo and grow people to try to help alleviate our lack of workers. And so Sabrina Mac-Perez is going to talk to us that. She's going to close us out with what we're doing to help with that. Our gross and taxable sales base, we had a steady increase this year. We were up about 2%. The Amarillo economy is, this year in 2020, will approach a $4 billion retail economy. And so very exciting, just a little bit of a steady increase, which is great. Would love to see more, obviously, but a steady increase the last few years. Right here you can see our employment growth. We're at a steady growth, not quite at the national and state levels, and that is because we have the lack of workforce that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Our Randall and Potter employment, we've got that divided out by county. Randall County continues to outpace Potter in job growth as well as population growth, and I think our next census, what I understand is that Randall County will have more residents in the city of Amarillo than Potter County for the first time ever. I want to thank you for coming this morning. Before I introduce Dr. Perryman, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff who put this together. So if you're an AEDC staff member, if you'll stand up and be recognized. A lot of hard work came into doing this event. So I want to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Ray Perryman is president and CEO of the Perryman Group, an economic research and analysis firm based in Waco, Texas. And I know he is really excited about his Baylor Bears. They're number one in the NCAA men's basketball poll, and the women are doing great as well. They're in the top 5. And so I know he's really proud of his Baylor Bears. That's where he received his bachelor's degree. He got his PhD in economics from Rice University. He is very distinguished at the economic development level, and at this last summer received the highest honor that you can receive in economic development. He got the International Economic Development Lifetime Achievement Award. So congratulations on that, Ray. we're very excited about. He was voted one of the young Texans, and one of the things that he's most proud of, he is grandfather of 4, married to Lorraine Perryman. She was the mayor of Odessa, spends time in Odessa and Waco. And so some of his most gratifying work has been in the field of economic development, and that's what he's going to talk about this morning, where he has played a key role in the creation of hundreds of thousands of jobs. So, Dr. Perryman, come on up.
Is this phone working? Everything good? Okay, great. They told me to get the one with the blue tape on it, so that's what I'm doing. I didn't want to stand behind the podium because Lorraine got me this Fitbit watch, and this will be my exercise for the day, so I wanted to kind of get a few steps in while I was up here. No, it's great to be with you, and again, in Amarillo, I always enjoy coming back here. I spent a lot of good time here, I have a lot of good friends here, and I hadn't planned to say this. In fact, it hadn't occurred to me in years, but when the mayor told a joke about Rome, I thought I'd tell my mayor's joke about Rome. And it's not a joke. It's actually a true story. Back when Lorraine was mayor, she was working on some big project, and she was just killing all of it. You know what it's like. I mean, just killing all of us to get this thing done. He's not, my fellow first gentleman here. And she was just working us to death. And I looked at her and I said, honey, Rome wasn't built in a day. And she said, yeah, but I wasn't in charge of that project. So I feel your pain, okay? I feel your pain, okay? Yeah, you would like her. I do too, as a matter of fact. but anyway, it's great to be here, and I appreciate the kind introduction. I've been doing this over 40 years, probably averaging, 75 to 100 speeches a year, so I've had a lot of introductions, Scott, or Kevin, I'm sorry. And I have to say, of all the introductions that I've had, that this is by far the most recent, and I appreciate that very much, I've had a lot of interesting ones. One of the most interesting ones I ever had actually happened, and I remember the exact date because I remember my first grandson was born that day. He was about 4 or 5 years ago. Now it's about 6 years ago, actually. And I was speaking at the Governor's Economic Development Conference in Wisconsin. And I know it was a breakfast because I got back before the kid was born, and I was very pleased about that. But anyway, because it was the governor's breakfast, the then governor, Scott Walker, introduced me. And as those of you know, when he ran for president and everything, he's a pretty outgoing guy, and I know him reasonably well. And somebody had given him a bio, something like Kevin had, and he was up reading it, and he just didn't want to do that. So he just slammed the book shut, and he said, I'm going to make this short and sweet. He said, I talked to my friend Rick Perry the other day, and I told him Ray was speaking at my conference. And he said, Ray Perryman's the smartest man in America. So ladies and gentlemen, here's the smartest man in America. That is not the introduction you want, okay? Like comedians, the introduction comedians hate is this guy's really funny, because then it sort of challenges the audience not to laugh, and they don't like that. So I thought I've got to do something to get this bunch back. And so the first thing that popped in my head, I got up and said it, and I probably shouldn't have, but I did. So I'll do it again since I should have done it in the first place. And I said, Governor, I appreciate the introduction. I said, all I can say is having Rick Perry call you smart's like having Chris Christie call you thin. You might want to consider the source. I know I shouldn't have done that. I really shouldn't have. And I'm about to make it worse. Kevin mentioned that Lifetime Achievement Award, and that was something that meant a great deal to me because I have worked a lot in this field over the years. And over the years, people have been very kind to me with awards. I will say that a guy who basically spends most of his time sitting in a comfortable chair watching television with a laptop and a Diet Coke beside him and maybe some double-stuffed Oreos is not who makes economic development happen. Who makes economic development happen is the professionals like Kevin and the people who work and the community leaders who get together and pull together to build their communities. And that meant a lot to me. But it reminded me of another award I won a few years ago. And you shouldn't talk about this stuff, but I seem to be doing a lot of things I shouldn't do this morning. But I have been blessed with a number of awards over the years. But one that I got a few years ago that really meant something to me. I grew up in a little town over in rural East Texas of when I was there, about 1,200 people. They have about 5,000 now. They got pretty successful after I left. But that seems to happen a lot. but anyway, they started this Distinguished Alumni Award, and they were kind enough to give it to me. That really meant a lot to me. And I went back over and spent a couple of days and saw a bunch of old friends and really had a nice time. And Lorraine asked me what it was like growing up in a town that small. And I said, well, it was great. I loved it. It was wonderful. And she said, well, what were the challenges? And I said, we didn't have any challenges. It was fine. It was fine. And she said, well, there had to be some problems growing up in a town that small. And I said, well, there was this one thing that bothered me a little bit. I said, we were so small, we had to take driver's education and sex education in the same car. And Lorraine thought about that for a minute. She said, you know, Ray, that makes perfect sense. You can't drive either. So I just wanted you to know the respect I get at home. So anyway, it is great to be here. I don't have a lot of time, so I won't do a whole comedy routine for you. But I was asked to talk about what's going on nationally and globally and in the state and that sort of thing, and how that impacts you here in the area. And then local folks are going to talk about your area economy. I will tell you, we're releasing our big forecast in a couple of weeks here that we do every year. We've done for the last, 30 some odd years. And I looked at the numbers last night, and I think you'll like what you see here. There's a lot of good things going on here, and you've had a little slowdown, but the last couple of years have built a fair amount of momentum, and I see that carrying forward, and I think you'll see some pretty good things. But let me plunge in here for just a second. The U.S. economy is, if nothing else these days, confusing. And if you don't think it's confusing, just go watch CNBC for an hour. I guarantee you somebody will say we're going to have a recession. And I guarantee you somebody will say we're not, okay? Because that happens every hour these days on CNBC and a lot of other stations. So, and I'm in the camp that says we're not, and more people are getting in that camp now than were a few weeks ago. I've always been in there, or a few months ago. But if you really stop and listen, when you ask them why they think there'll be a recession, the most common answer is, this is the longest recovery in history. We've been going for 10 years now. This has never happened before. So, getting about time to have a recession. The only thing I can say about that is economic recoveries and economic expansions do not die of old age. It's always something else. We don't just wake up one morning and say, gee, we've been growing a long time, we better have a recession. That's not how it works. Now, there are reasons why you have cycles in an economy. And when the whole world, and particularly this country, was pretty much agrarian, there were reasons you had business cycles, because if agriculture was good, if the crops were good, the economy was good. If the crops were bad, the economy wasn't good. And it was pretty much that simple. But when you have an economy that is very diverse, like we have now, and you have energy, and you have agriculture, and you have technology, and you have other types of manufacturing, you have very big export-oriented service industries and all that, what can happen is one industry can be doing well while another one's not doing so well. So you still have the natural cycles in the industry, but they don't always come together. In fact, the way we operate now, if you stop and think about it, when the price of oil goes up, that's very good for a big segment of the economy. Out here, and particularly where I live in the Permian Basin, it's very good. But it's bad for everybody else. There's a reason why the country calls 1973 to 1981 the energy crisis, and Texas calls it the oil boom. There's a reason for that, because it makes a big difference if you're the buyer or the seller. And so basically, when energy cost goes up, it's good for the energy industry, but everybody else's cost goes up, it's not good for them. So we can kind of balance these things out. And normally when we have a recession, it's one of two things. Either some big outside force causes it, the embargoes back in the 70s and the production cuts, that sort of thing. 9/11 made when we were already in a lot worse. Something big from the outside, or we do something stupid. And the most common way is that we do something stupid. Okay? And we're doing some stupid stuff right now, but none of it's big enough to cause a recession. If you think about the last recession we had, which was the worst since the Great Depression, if you stop and think about it, and I'm not pointing to anybody in particular, so I won't look this way. I'll look over here and point over there, okay? So because I'm just want to give you an example. Here's how that recession happened, okay? See that fellow over there? He doesn't have now let's see who I pointed to. He doesn't have a job, doesn't have any savings, doesn't really know what he wants to do with his life, kind of shiftless, kicks his dog, his mama doesn't like him. What he needs is a house. And we will figure out a way to get him a house. We don't worry about all that stuff they used to ask for on those loan applications, name, address, income. We don't need all that stuff. We'll figure out a way to get him a house and get him a mortgage. And then we'll take that mortgage and 999 other mortgages that are just as bad, and we'll put them in a bond. And we'll sell that bond. And 1,000 bad mortgages make a good bond. Always works that way. It's diversification, you understand. Okay? And so we did that. And we found every deadbeat we could find. And we got them in a house. And we put those houses into bonds. And the folks on Wall Street said, we want more bonds. And they said, well, there's no more deadbeats. We got them all in the house now. No, we need more bonds. They said, no problem. We'll write derivatives on these bonds. Now, if you watch the financial news, they try to make derivatives sound very complicated. They are not. A derivative is a side bet. It's where you get paid based on how something performs, but you don't own it. I won't ask for a show of hands, but if you've ever been to the track and bet on a horse, you bought a derivative. Because you don't own the horse, but you get paid based on how the horse performs. That's all a derivative is. And what that meant was we could take this one bad bond and we could write 100 derivatives on it. And they did. Now what that means is, it means that if you have one house here in Amarillo that's underwater by $50,000 on the mortgages, you created $5 million in losses in the economy. For those of you from College Station, just add 2 zeros. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry, I couldn't help that. Go ahead and give me the whoops. That's fine. Anyway, but the point being, we created a massive multi-trillion-dollar downturn by doing something stupid. And one day somebody said, wonder how they're ever going to pay these mortgages back. And the time for the real payments to kick in happened, and the whole thing went south. Okay? The one before that was equally stupid. We decided any company with no revenue, no plan to generate cash, burning through investor cash like crazy, this last name happened to be .com, was worth $1 billion at least. Everybody and their dog had a .com company that wasn't making any money. And then finally, one day, some folks said, wonder how these folks are ever going to make any money. We don't know. The whole thing collapsed. So that's usually how we have a recession. And we have some stuff going on right now, and I won't go into all the details, but there's none of it that's likely to cause a recession anytime soon. So I think we continue to grow, not spectacularly, but kind of at the pace we've been growing. And that's just fine for this area, and you'll do well in that context. There are some issues nationally and globally that affect you a lot, and I want to talk about them right now. They're difficult politically, and I will assure you, if you Google me and really read carefully, you can find times Republicans have said the worst stuff about me you can imagine, and times they've called me a genius. And you can do the same thing with Democrats, because I don't try to be liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat. I just do analysis and report numbers, and it drives everybody crazy. And sometimes they like me, and sometimes they don't. So I'll say, if this sounds political, I don't mean for it to. It's just I'm going to give you the numbers in a couple of areas. But the first one I want to talk about that probably has the biggest impact on you is trade. And fortunately, we've just kind of cobbled something together with China. They've agreed to buy some agricultural products. That'll be good for this area, particularly dairy and meat animals and things like that. We still have most of the tariffs in place. We've got to still work through that. It looks like, and I was on the group that helped put this together the first time and the second time, it looks like we finally have a deal that's going to go through with Mexico and Canada, and that's very good for us. It matters to Texas in a big way because people don't realize this, and I look at numbers all the time, and there's very few of them that make me take a step back, but I swear, every time I see this number, I just shake my head. Let this sink in for a second. Of all the exporting that's done in this country, and there's a lot, of all the exporting in this country, 1 out of every $6 is from Texas. We are a huge exporting state. And of course, a lot of that's geared to energy and agriculture, which are big industries here, and particularly agriculture. And I want to basically tell you a little bit about, just a minute or two, about trade wars and why they don't make sense, okay? First of all, the whole concept of trade is rooted in a concept, and I'm going to wax a little bit academic here for a second, that was first developed in 1811. It's never been contradicted. It's not a new idea, but we seem to have a hard time getting in our heads. It's a simple thing called comparative advantage. And comparative advantage simply says, do what you do best, okay? And but it's a tough concept. When I used to teach economics, every time I'd talk about comparative advantage, I'd look out and have all those blank stares. And I'd give it another go, and I'd still have blank stares. It was just, it was not quite intuitively obvious, okay? So basically, I finally, about 6 months ago, I figured out how to explain comparative advantage. I was down in South Louisiana, and my Cajun friends gave me a phrase, which I'd heard a few times before, but they really drilled it into me, and I said, that's comparative advantage. And I even looked it up. It actually originated in Hawaii, but the Cajuns took it over. It's a phrase I'm sure you've heard. It's called mo better. Are you familiar with mo better? okay? That's what comparative advantage is. It says, even if you do everything better than I do, okay, it would still make sense for me to do some of the stuff, and you to do some of the stuff, and for us to trade. If you did the stuff you did better, and I did the stuff you just did that you just did better, we could still benefit from trading instead of you trying to do everything yourself. And that's the whole concept. And trade wars don't do anything but interfere with that. And that's not to say China's not a bad actor. I spend a lot of time over there working with them as well, and they are a bad actor. But they do a lot of things wrong. But tariffs and trade wars are not the way to fix it. And I'm going to try to give you a simple illustration of that right now, and just how silly trade wars are. Let's say that I own a hardware store, really good hardware store, and let's say that Kevin owns a grocery store right next door to my hardware store, really good grocery store. Okay, he buys his hardware from me. I buy my groceries from him. Okay, that sound good? Okay, at the end of the year, I'm doing my books, and I figure out, hey, you know what? He spent $1,000 with me last year. That's good. I spent $2,000 with him. Is there anything wrong with that? No. I needed more food than he needed hardware. Okay. Now I'm going to change it up a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to say, instead of his store being next door to me, what if it's across the street? Does that make any difference? No. Now, I'm going to change it one more time. What if there's a line in the middle of the street that's a border? So I'm in one country and he's in another one. Does that matter? No, doesn't matter. He has good groceries, good value. I have good hardware, good value. We shop with each other. That's fine. But now, when the government does the math, my country has a $1,000 trade deficit. Okay? Because I spent more in his store than he spent in my store. What if the leader of my country said, you know what? We don't like that. They must be stealing from us some way. We don't like his trade deficit. We're going to put a 25% tariff on everything that he does. Okay? Everything he sells over here, we're going to put a 25% tariff on it. Okay, in the first place, who gets to pay that? I do. Okay? Folks in this country. Now, it really depends for those of you who took economics and paid attention. I hope that's not too many of you. But if you did, it really depends on the cross elasticities of demand and supply and all that stuff. We've done that math for over 800 goods. And on average, the person on this side pays about 87%, and about 13% gets discounted from the other side. So on balance, we basically pay all of it. It really doesn't matter, okay? And all of a sudden, he can't sell as many groceries. I can't buy as many groceries, or I look somewhere else to shop, even though he has a better store. And then his leader says, oh, we can't let him get away with that. We're going to put a 25% tariff on Ray's hardware store, okay? And then my guy says, well, there's that clothing store next door to Kevin. We're going to put a 25% tariff on that. That is how a trade war starts. And that is just how much sense it makes. Okay? So it's not the best way to do policy. Unfortunately, we seem to be ebbing these out. Some it will help. One of the difficulties is there's a lot of uncertainty around this now, and policy's uncertain. Just this week, the president's been over in Davos, and he said, well, now I may put some tariffs on Europe. Well, we probably won't put tariffs on Europe. But when you say that, what happens is everybody who's investing in those kinds of businesses that do business in Europe and the European businesses that sell to the United States, they start getting nervous. They back off a little bit and say, well, maybe we'll wait a few months and let this thing settle out. Uncertainty causes us to do nothing. And for an economy to move, we're supposed to be doing something. And so that's basically what happens. So anyway, so trade wars really, they're not good, and we need to find better ways to solve things. And what we really need to do is beef up the enforcement in the World Trade Organization and resolve these things through basically negotiating. And there's a mechanism to do that in place, but it's not strong enough at this point. So, but anyway, these do really matter. I mean, getting this trade agreement done with Mexico versus not having an agreement at all. Now, it's not that much different from NAFTA, really. It's updated, modernized a few things, made a few things better, a few things worse, but on balance, it's about a wash from that. But the alternative wasn't NAFTA versus this, it was NAFTA versus we pull out. If we pull out, that means we all go back to the tariffs that we had before NAFTA and what we published with the World Trade Organization, which would basically raise the cost of most U.S. goods in the foreign markets by 4%. Our cost advantage right now is about 4%. So basically, we just surrender that. Okay. Now, what that would mean is we ran the numbers and we did the studies for Congress and everybody else. that having an agreement in place is worth about 600,000 jobs to this country, 160,000 of which are right here in the great state of Texas because of our intense integration with Mexico. So all of this, and you have industries here that depend on that. So all of that's really important. The other non-controversial issue I want to talk about, I know everybody just agrees completely on this one, is immigration. Okay, I know there can't be any disagreement about that. It's a tough issue. It's a very, very tough issue. But Scott just put some stuff up here. I don't know why I keep saying Scott. Kevin, I'm sorry. We've known each other a long time. I look at him, I say Scott. But anyway, I guess because Scott's over here. But anyway, Kevin put some numbers up here and talked about them a few minutes ago. And you saw that nice upward trend in employment growth. In the last few years, it's been in the 1.6, 1.8, 2% range. Good, solid growth. He put a chart up that shows over the decades solid growth. There's another chart. Okay, so let's say you average growing 1.5, 1.6% job growth over the next decade or so. Okay, right now your population is growing about 0.7%, and your unemployment rate, which you guys are going to talk about later, is 2.5%. So you don't have slack in the workforce, and your needs are going to exceed the number of people who are naturally going to be here, okay? So the bottom line is we need the workers. We need workers from other places. Let me give you one, because the one that really upsets people is undocumented workers. Let me give you some quick numbers on that. And basically, today in Texas, about 13 million people will go to work today in Texas. That's roughly our workforce. About 1.3 million of them will be undocumented. 1 out of every 10. Okay, that's a lot. 40% of our construction workforce, 40% of our agricultural workforce. Start thinking what we would look like if we didn't have access to those workers. Now, the unemployment rate in Texas is about 3.5%, which translates to about 450,000 folks. So let's say that tomorrow we did not have those 1.3 million people. We only have 450,000 to try to fill those jobs, okay? So we're way short. But let's go a step further. How many of those 450,000 can have the skills to do construction work or the stamina to do agricultural work? A fairly small number probably. So we're probably 1 million workers short tomorrow in an economy with 13 million jobs unless we have access to that workforce. Now so what that basically says is you can call it whatever you want to, you can treat it any way you want to. We need the workers. And it has to do with the fact we're getting older. There's a lot of things driving it. Demographics are driving it. A lot of things are driving it. But the bottom line is we need immigration reform desperately, but the kind of immigration reform we need is the kind that lets us use this workforce. And this workforce started coming to the country in large numbers because we needed workers. Markets find solutions to problems. So the bottom line is that is an important issue. We have a lot of that workforce in West Texas. And so I think that's another big issue that is going on right now nationally, internationally, that really affects us out here, and one that we need to find some realistic solutions to. And there are some people working on that. The final one I want to talk, how much time do I have? I know I've been rambling. 7 minutes, okay. I can do this next 3 hours in 7 minutes. That's not a problem. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to talk about that will have a big impact on you in some interesting ways that I haven't quite sorted out yet, to be totally honest, is what's going on in the energy sector right now, globally and every other way. And it's a remarkable thing. And it will be, on balance, will be positive for the area in the energy sector, but it's going to be kind of an interesting type of positive, because the folks down where I live, just south of here in the Permian Basin, have had a true revolution of global significance in energy in the past few years. Let me tell you how this works. In 1973, oil production in the Permian Basin was 2.2 million barrels a day, the highest that it had ever been in 1973, okay? It started out in 1920, a century ago, they drilled the first well. They got up to 2.2 million barrels a day in 1973. The next 8 years was the oil boom. You know, when prices went from $3 to $36, you would think that it produced a lot more, but they didn't. Oil production fell every year from 1973 to 2008, 35 straight years. And the reason production fell, even though it was an oil boom, was because the fields were old. they had drilled out and gotten all the easy stuff, and geology was being very cruel. No matter how many new wells they drilled, and they were drilling them right and left all the time, and no matter how much new oil they coaxed out of the ground, the old ones were taking away more. And so they couldn't keep up. And so production fell. When we got to 2008, it was 700,000 barrels a day, falling by 2/3. If the world had stayed like it was in 2008 for these next 12 years, we'd be at somewhere around 400 right now, 400,000 from 2.2 million. But the world didn't stay the same. Okay. We figured something out. Instead of just waiting for this stuff for millions of years to seep out of these very dense rocks, we could just go down in the rocks and get it. And that revolution in technology basically changed the whole structure of the energy industry. And by 2016, they were producing 2.2 million again. Took them 35 years to go down, 8 years to go up. The next year it was 3 million. Now it's about 4.5 million barrels a day, twice what it ever had been before right now. 2/3 of the new production in the United States is from just south of here. Now, that has a lot of implications, okay? That happened. We got rid of the export ban. We're building infrastructure. There's a long story. You've heard me tell this story. There's a long story that goes into all this, and I won't go into all the detail. But the bottom line is the energy industry's changed fundamentally, and demand is going to be there. And people say, what about climate change? It's a very important issue, but here's the real story about climate change, okay? And this is where politicians on both sides get all worked up. One side says ban fracking. One side says drill everywhere. Can't do either one of those. But the bottom line is that the world economy is going to grow at about 3.5% a year or so for the next 25, 30 years probably on average. 75% of that growth is going to be in emerging countries that need more energy. We're going to need twice as much energy in the world in 25 years than what we use today. So we need all we use today and that much more. If you take everything we could possibly do with renewables, with storage technology, with bringing back nukes and working with those, and you throw in a black swan or two, those things we don't know about right now, we'll still be getting 60 to 70% of our energy from hydrocarbons in 25 years. There's nothing else that will work. So the solution has to be we have to figure out ways to burn hydrocarbons better. And that's exactly what the industry's investing billions of dollars in doing right now. But anyway, all of that to say, the industry's going to grow, but it's going to grow in a different way. The focus right now is on driving costs down. And what that means is used to price goes way up, and everybody runs out and drills, and then the price goes way down, everybody leaves, and you have this big boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust. And believe me, out where I live, they've lived with that for a century. But what's happening now is, if they can make money right now, in 2015, they needed $70 a barrel on average to make money on a frac well. Today, it's about 48. It's going down. Every year it goes down. Exxon's told the investment community they think that in the southern Delaware Basin, they can get it to 15 in 10 years. That's pretty remarkable. But what that says is, yeah, they'll still drill more wells at 80 than they will at 50, but they don't stop at 50. And we're seeing that right now. We're in a little bit of a slowdown in the energy industry right now. The rig count's fallen 15%. In 2008, it fell 75%. In 2015, it fell 75%. This time it fell 15%. So you'll still have cycles, but they'll look like this instead of like that. And that has profound implications, but the other thing it means is, and this is where it gets kind of complicated with the level of production, the type of production you have here, they're driving costs down in just a few areas, like the southern Delaware Basin. That's Reeves County, Culbertson County, Loving County, that area. 2 minutes? Okay. And so that's where a lot of the investment is going right now. So you're not, and the way the financial markets are working, the big guys can get all the money they want. The smaller guys are having trouble getting capital right now. And so what's happening is the big guys in these big leases are doing more and more and more. And so it's going to kind of change the geography of it and mess it around. But the bottom line is we're going to produce it all, and we're going to export the vast majority of it in the future. And so that will be good for the economy, but it's going to be a little bit different than it has been in the past. It has a lot of implications for the Permian Basin. For example, something as simple as people who used to move in and stay in the hotels for when the times were good, or the man camps, and then go home when times were bad. If they think they're going to have a job for 25 years, they might move out there. That creates housing, schools, infrastructure, all kinds of issues that have to be dealt with. And all the communities out there are trying to deal with that right now. But anyway, all that to say, a lot of things are happening. What happens in the world does affect you here. And I have every confidence that you will do well. This community has always been one of the most creative communities in the country when it came to economic development. We've had the economic development sales tax now about 30 years. You were one of the first to get it and did some of the most innovative things with it at the beginning, and you have perpetually been a very, very strong and innovative community in economic development. It's paid a lot of dividends, and I have every confidence that's going to continue to happen. So let me just close very, very quickly by just saying there's a lot of junk on the news right now. I mean, we've got this impeachment going on, but I mean other stuff. I mean, every day this is happening, that's happening. It seems like all this uncertainty. I've had a bunch of people say to me, is this the worst it's ever been? Well, let's think about that for a second. I may go a minute over, okay? Let's think about that for a second. We have the strongest, most stable political and economic institutions in the history of the world in this country. Can we survive what's going on now? Well, let's give it a quick test. We managed to survive a civil war, 2 world wars, a Great Depression, 7 financial panics. I think we can handle this one. Times are uncertain, a lot of stuff going on all around the world. Some of it's getting resolved, other stuff will pop up. That's the nature of the complex world we live in. But we are fundamentally the strongest economy that's ever existed in terms of stability, institutions, and framework, and structure, and strength. And so I have every confidence we'll do well, and I have every confidence you will be a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perriman. Appreciate that. Now we're going to have a distinguished panel this morning come up and visit with some things that are going on in Amarillo. I would be remiss if I didn't thank a couple of more folks. I want to thank New Day Productions for helping us out with the sound and the filming and the lighting. And also want to thank the Big Texan for bringing breakfast this morning. It was really good. And so let's give them a round of applause. And one other group I didn't recognize that's very important to me as well is our AEDC Board of Directors. I know we have a few of those here this morning, so I know Scott and Laura are here, if y'all can stand up and be recognized. Also Lloyd Brown, Andrew Hall, and Brian Heinrich are on our board. And then I know I saw a lot of past board members, so if you've ever been on the AEDC board, if you'll stand up and let us recognize you, because you have a big part of why we're here this morning. So, all right. Thanks for joining us this morning. Before I get started, we're going to let the audience submit questions, and we used this last year, and it's Slido, SLIDO.com. And our event code is Q328, or you can scan that QR code if you get your camera to focus in on that. But I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves this morning, and then we'll start off with a question, and then we'll start taking some audience questions. So, Caleb, I'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Caleb West. I'm one of the founding owners and head brewers over at Pondaseta Brewing Co.
I'm Pat Ware. I'm one of the thousands of bankers in the room, and I work at Amarillo National Bank.
Gina Woodward. I'm the regional director for the Small Business Development Center at WT.
My name is Jay Barrett. I'm principal at the Amarillo Area Center for Advanced Learning, and I'm also a regent at Amarillo College.
All right, welcome. Pat, I'm going to start with you this morning. From a 20,000-foot view, what did you think of what Dr. Perriman said this morning? What's your take on the economy?
Well, I think everybody in the room should listen to what he says instead of what I say, because he really is one of the smartest people on the planet. But it's really good to hear a smart person who's not from this area, he is from Texas but not from the Panhandle, reinforce everything we think about this part of the world. We have one of the strongest workforces in the country, education-wise, work ethic-wise. and our economy's stable. Employment is stable, unemployment's low, retail sales are up, wages are steady, construction is good. Everybody in this room knows commodities and the weather don't always cooperate, but we work with that. So the Amarillo economy is steady. We're not booming like other parts of Texas, but that's a good thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pat. Caleb, this question is for you. Do you believe that there is sufficient funding available to small business owners in Amarillo?
In my experience, yes. It's not always easy to find or get up front, but once you have a concept that's proven, it seems to be available to you.
Okay. Gina, what resource would you want in Amarillo to help, if you could have one thing to help small businesses grow?
We have in the Texas Panhandle, I think we can all agree, the best people in the entire United States. I'm a little bit biased, but we are the best. We also have some of the most talented female entrepreneurs in the United States right here in the Panhandle. But what I have found is that many of them are overwhelmed. They're trying to manage their business. They're trying to manage their family with life in general. And they don't have the support that they want and need. So long term, the resource that I would like to see is some kind of formalized network to provide these women with the mentorship and the fellowship that they need to grow and expand their businesses. Short term, I think there's a way that we can all help fix that today. I would encourage you, if you know a woman who owns a business, give her a call, tell her you're proud of her, she's doing a good job. Offer to take her out for coffee and just give her the mentorship and the fellowship that she needs.
All right. Thank you, Gina. Jay, work on the new Amarillo Academy has started. How do you train students for jobs that you don't yet exist?
It's not easy, but I'll tell you what we do right now at ACAL and what we will do at the Amarillo Career Academy or whatever we end up calling it. We actually start with skills that have nothing to do with the technical aspects of the careers the students want to go into. And by that, I'm talking about what you might hear as employability skills or transferable skills or 21st century skills, because these will go anywhere and everywhere and at any time. These are skills that people need throughout their lifetime. Especially, we teach at ACAL we call them the 4 ACAL attributes, or the 4 ACEs. We want our students to be articulate. We want them to be adaptable. We want them to be accountable. And we want them to have a heart for the people around them, to be aware of their needs. But the main thing right there, as far as that question goes, is to be adaptable. We know that the kids right now when they were in kindergarten, can you just imagine all of the jobs that have disappeared and all of the jobs that have arisen over that time? We have got to teach our students, and we do in Amarillo ISD, that they have to be adaptable to those changes. If one industry or one career that they want to go into diminishes, they've got to be able and agile enough to be able to jump to a different area in that industry. Sometimes it may be a whole different industry you have to go into, like the lattice work. You just have to prepare yourself for that change. We don't say, if it will change. We say when it will change.
Okay, thanks. Caleb, why did you choose Amarillo to start your business?
I grew up in Canyon and never envisioned myself coming back, as I think you always hear from outside. It's not what your original vision might have been. But when we looked at opening our own business, we considered 3 cities pretty seriously. We were living in Austin at the time, definitely looked there. We also considered Tampa, Florida, where a lot of my wife's family's from, but the competition in those markets are pretty stiff, and I didn't find as much support both on the professional end or on the business end. And so when we chose Amarillo, it seemed like the market was ready for growth and had a pretty good opening for us to fall into.
All right, super. Thanks, Caleb. Pat, what sectors are the institutional lenders focusing on at the current time?
Well, right now the major industry in our area. If you look at ag, you got feed yards and dairies. Those had good years. Our equipment dealers, large truck dealers, car dealers, they tend to do well. A lot of service businesses are doing well. Our medical area is in a mini renaissance. It's attracting a lot of people and really providing the health care that our area needs. And as far as real estate is steady, we're not booming. Construction has kind of slowed down in Amarillo, not a lot of major projects going on. But the lending opportunities are there, the deposits are there, the banks in this room all have plenty of capital and are willing to lend. And the strength of this area's banking is the community focus. You see a lot of the big money center banks out of the big cities. They don't do as well as the community banks in this area, and that's because the lenders, the bankers, tend to know what their customers need.
Okay, super. Gina, what workshops can SBDC or the SBA put on in Amarillo to help us grow our workforce and create more workers?
Sure. We're really proud of the workshops that we do at the SBDC just a few blocks away. We just wrapped up a QuickBooks workshop yesterday. That's definitely one of the fundamentals that most small business owners need. We try to start out a lot of our clients with the introduction to business class. Do you need a business plan? What is a business plan? Sometimes people don't know. We can help you out with financial projections, market research, get the ball rolling in that class. I think next week we've got a payroll class coming up. Payroll can be really overwhelming for people. We'll walk you through those forms step by step and show you how to file your own payroll if you choose to do so. Probably one of my favorite workshops that we do is our press record workshop. We have some of the wonderful professionals at Creative Canon, David Martinez and his group come, and we show small business owners using the smartphone that you already have, there's no additional cost, and free editing apps, how to film a professional 1-minute video. You can post to social media, you can use it for an introductory video, you can use it to show off products, whatever that might be. But we've really shifted our focus at the SBDC. Our workshops are very skills focused now. So when you come, I want you to leave with a new skill. And we're always very open to new workshops. So if somebody has a suggestion, please let us know.
All right, Jay, this question's been asked 2 or 3 times. What's going on at the old Hastings building?
You've noticed that, have you?
I have.
Okay. Well, there's quite a lot. This has been a great evolution to watch this building that we bought in 2017 at the end of the year. It was filled with a lot of junk. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in there. And we've been busy cleaning it out so that now it's a blank canvas. It's an empty space that we are about to fill with about 11 academies. We're still in that schematic design phase where we're throwing an idea on the table and seeing if that is a career that we need to start training in. But in these 11 academies, we'll be teaching about 25 different career pathways in those 11 academies. Compare that to what we're doing at ACAL right now with 5 different career pathways. We're listening to the community. We're working with the Labor Market Index. I'm on the Texas Panhandle Workforce Development Board, and so we look at that data a lot to find out, are these the careers that we need to be training students in, or should we do something different? We plan to open this school, this academy, in August of 21. That is going very quickly because we haven't even put a shovel in the ground yet. We've just been cleaning things up. We are working with an architect who has pushed us because he knows that starting in July or August of this year, we will be building that thing out. It's exciting to be a part of that, but also daunting to know that this is something for the entire city of Amarillo. It's not an Amarillo ISD project. It's the entire city and perhaps even an entire region. We're going to be working with businesses all throughout. We want it to be your laboratory. We want it to be where you can bring your workforce in and train them in the evenings perhaps. Bring your skills to the daytime and teach our students. We're going to be needing, we don't have a lot of cybersecurity experts willing to give up that job to come teach. The pay differential just won't allow that. But you could be an adjunct professor. You could help part-time. We may have students come in the evenings for our classes. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be amazing. And it will be a place that we want you to know will change with the economy as it changes. One thing that I've been thinking about, education and economic growth, it's kind of like, we want education to fuel economic growth. We want it to be the fuel that you put in the tank. We want our students to know that you're there as our partners, that they are going to be supported when they graduate. That, I said this the other day, the line between where education ends and careers and college begins is invisible these days. Where is it? Because we train students starting early in the education. By the time they're in 10th or 11th grade, they pretty much know whether they want to go down this pathway or down that pathway. So we want you to know that being our partner is very, very important. We will reach out to you. We want to bond with you and partner with you. We're not the experts in those fields. We're the experts in teaching kids. And so I could go on. I probably have. But be watching what goes on. Be a participant in that. Don't just be a bystander. Help us when we reach out to you. Say, yes, I can come in. I can tell you what that space should look like. Construction, HVAC, plumbing. We haven't taught those in Amarillo ISD for a number of years. We're going to have to get the kids excited about the opportunities that await them in those kinds of careers as well. So there you go.
All right. Caleb, last question for you. What's the biggest obstacle as a small business owner in Amarillo?
I think predicting, for us anyways, predicting the consumer's preferences and expectations. I feel like we've done a decent job, but we've had things that we've released in terms of products we've put out there that we thought that's going to be an amazing thing, and people are going to be lining up at the doors to buy this, and they like it, but they're not excited about it. We released a beer yesterday at 4 p.m. and we sold 25% of what we produced of that one product yesterday. And that was, kind of expected, but we were also nervous. So I think for us, it's trying to plan appropriately and predict what we need to do in an industry that's not well known in this area.
Pat, in your opinion, what economic sector is going to grow the fastest in Amarillo?
Well, with the ADC's help, hopefully manufacturing, but again, I'm going to circle back to the medical area. As the population ages and as Amarillo grows, that's going to continue to be a big part of our community and a wonderful part of the community. We'll continue to look to have a diverse base of growth, but look for along I-40, some of the, like I said, the car dealers, the truck dealers, they should grow. Retail's always strong. Oil and gas might slow down depending on the prices, but it's hard to pick out one field that's going to grow because we do have so much momentum behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gina, what is the best piece of advice that you give to a new business or somebody that wants to start a business and they come to your office? What's that best piece of advice that you give them?
It's the best piece of advice that I was given when I took over the SBDC 5 years ago, and I'll expand on it just a little bit. The piece of advice that I was given was to hire good people, and that's 100% true. But I've learned over the last 5 years and have expanded on that, and I would tell people to surround yourself with good people, with good mentors, with people that you can fellowship with, somebody you can go have coffee with. Angela Lust and I go have coffee. Amy and I have coffee. It means a great deal to me. Those people have helped me grow. I would encourage all of you to find your Amy, your Angela, go have coffee with them because they will help you grow.
Super. Great advice. All right, Jay, last question. How are Amarillo's educational institutions working with employers to train the workforce? So we've talked about how you've done it with the students. How do you do that with the employers that are in town?
Say that again.
Okay. How are Amarillo's educational institutions working with the area employers to train the workforce?
What we are doing is, for instance, at ACAL, we have internship program at the senior level. Our students come work in industry. They are there for 3 half days a week. Sometimes students are employed right away, and they clock in at 4 o'clock and work until whenever. So that's one of the biggest ways that we work with businesses in town, and you work with us, is to allow our students into your businesses. We want to encourage you to continue to have that open door policy. Our students are by no means perfect, but they are a great raw material that we're trying to develop into the future workforce that will sit alongside you, just like Gina said, that will be those good people you can surround yourself with. Apprenticeship programs. I know at Amarillo College, we're starting to think about how you can get into the apprenticeship model. Dr. Lowry Hart and Mr. Loomis and others went to Boston recently to learn more about apprenticeships. And it's good to see those two institutions, Amarillo ISD and Amarillo College, working hand in glove, because that's one of the ways that we can hand off our students to college, from ASD to college to the workforce, and have a great skilled workforce waiting for you, or waiting for future businesses that will come to Amarillo.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, panel. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this morning. Let's give the panel a warm welcome. Thank you. I'm very excited about this next piece of the program as we close up this morning, and we appreciate again the audience being here. But I'm really excited about rolling out this next program. I know Sabrina is, but Sabrina Mac-Perez is the AEDC's Director of Workforce Attraction and Retention. She previously served with the America's Small Business Development Center at WT, where she consulted companies in areas such as social media marketing and branding. She's a graduate of West Texas A&M University. Sabrina is the chair for the Workforce Committee at No Limits, No Excuses, whose initiatives are to create education industry collaboration, increase area internships, and create better pathways to post-secondary credentials and ultimately careers that provide a higher standard of living. She serves on the board for the Hope and Healing Place and is the mentorship chair on the board for Elevate Amarillo, the city's young professional group. So let's welcome Sabrina Mac-Perez.
Good morning. So yes, my name is Sabrina Mac-Perez, and I'm the Director of Workforce Attraction and Retention at the Amarillo EDC. I just want to thank you guys for being here today, and I want to thank you for being the leaders in our businesses, our civic, philanthropic, and community efforts in Amarillo and the Texas Panhandle region. So with a record unemployment rate, we understand that you all want to find the right people, hire the right people, and ultimately keep the right people in order to build and grow your organizations. In your search to hire, you may be experiencing the challenge of recruiting to this area or even turnover due to people not getting acclimated. If you have found yourself exhausting your resources or your HR departments to try to grow your organization, we at the Amarillo EDC wanted to create tools for you to better recruit and retain talent, produce ambassadors for your organization and our community, and ultimately grow your business and our economy. Last year at our first State of the Economy, which many of you might have attended, Tony DeLisi, a senior consultant with Avalanche Consulting, spoke about one of the leading factors in the future of the economic landscape, talent. He addressed the growing need to invest in talent for site selection of business and to be proactive in training for the future of jobs. The Amarillo EDC wanted to respond to that need and assist our employers in recruiting and retaining talent. Over the past year, we have surveyed multiple employers and piloted and tweaked a few programs to better serve our local and future companies. As job seekers consider where they want to take root, many factors impact their choices. Right at the top are cost of living and the ability to live, work, and play without a long commute. When looking to move to a new location, job seekers, particularly Gen Z and millennial talent, use word of mouth, online searches, and the ever-present social media to make their decisions. Many local employers told us about the challenge of employees, along with their spouses and significant others, finding it difficult to get acclimated and plugged into the community. This is why we created TakeRootInAmarillo.com. It's a one-stop shop website that positively and accurately highlights what life really looks like in Amarillo. Not only does it have fresh, updatable content like what our neighborhood's lifestyle and education look like, but we are highlighting what our careers look like by focusing on high-quality jobs with our living wage job board. This niche job board is designed to help you all broadcast some of these higher skilled positions, which sometimes require us to look outside of our region. There are multiple easy ways to post jobs to TakeRootInAmarillo.com, so that way this is a tool that eases your hiring process instead of overwhelming it. But don't think that just because you aren't a big company with these big jobs, you can't utilize this website. If you aren't looking to bring someone in for a high-skilled living wage job, but maybe just need some entry-level help, there's no better way to fill your talent pipeline than with internships. Any organization, large, medium, or small, can post any paid or unpaid internship to our community's first public internship board. Right now, college students can find internships two ways, through their university or directly on a company's website. But what about the students that go to college outside of the Panhandle? This is the perfect way to recruit those students who already have roots here and invite them back to see what working in Amarillo could actually offer them for their professional careers, their personal lives, and overall quality of life. Starting in February, we will be specifically promoting our public internship board to these students. And if you have a summer intern, you will have the opportunity to get them plugged into the brand new Amarillo Intern Experience. This past summer, we piloted the Amarillo Intern Experience out of a need we heard from employers that college interns come here to learn and to work, but again, they don't get acclimated to the community very well. Our city is very close-knit and not as walkable as larger cities, so it's a little more difficult to make friends. So we brought interns together from a few companies, and students learned about our city, experienced things they probably would have not explored, spent time with interns from outside their work, and connected with Elevate Amarillo young professionals. The comments from the beginning of the summer to the end transformed immensely. This exciting new program will be open to any organization who has interns this summer. Together, we will offer a wide invitation for interns to grow their careers and their personal lives right here. If you want to learn how to implement any of these programs, you will want to attend our next Build Your Talent Toolbox event. These are biannual events designed to help HR managers, business owners, and really anyone who hires employees ease the hiring process. On February 12th, we will have Sarah Reinecke with the Development Counselors International discussing DCI research on how individuals make decisions about jobs and locations. You'll also receive next steps on how to utilize TakeRootInAmarillo.com. We at the Amarillo EDC know that workforce is key to both business and economic growth, and we are here to help lessen the burden of the hiring process. So join us on February 12th. I want to leave you with just a taste of the tools you'll walk away with to help recruit and retain your future talent.
If you're looking to take root in a new city, you might want to know what family-friendly things there are to do there. Yeah, we have rodeos in Amarillo, but we also have a state-of-the-art science museum, some killer art galleries, and the second largest canyon in the United States. I'm Nate File, and I own a video production company in Amarillo, Texas. The Panhandle Plains Museum is the largest history museum in Texas. Its massive collection has more than 3 million artifacts and draws more than 70,000 visitors every year. There's everything from dinosaurs to oil derricks, classic cars to antique rifles, fine art to native artifacts. On the north side of Amarillo is the massive forested Thompson Park. It features a huge dog park, a small lake, a disc golf course, and our city's zoo. Inside the zoo, kids will discover lions, spider monkeys, tortoises, tigers, and black bears. Thompson Park is also home to Wonderland Park, the third largest amusement park in Texas. Wonderland has been around for over 65 years and has been given the Publisher's Pick Award from Amusement Today magazine. Kids will love the roller coasters, bumper cars, arcades, and haunted house. Paladero Canyon, just outside Amarillo, features some of the most jaw-dropping panoramas you'll find anywhere. Locals come out here year-round for picnics, mountain biking, trail riding, and stargazing. At the Pioneer Amphitheater, they've been performing the outdoor musical Texas for over half a century. People travel here from all over the world to see this classic musical under the stars. We're excited about our new baseball stadium in downtown Amarillo. We're now home to the San Diego Padres AA farm team. These games are a great opportunity for some family time in the sunshine in an inviting downtown environment. On Saturday mornings near the stadium, Amarillo hosts a community market with organic, locally grown vegetables, food trucks, artisanal baked goods, and locally made art. On market days, live bands play for the crowds on the steps of the nearby Bivens Mansion. Come check out our rich cultural heritage. I think you'll find that Amarillo is a great city to take root.
What an amazing opportunity that we have to grow our workforce through our young people. And Sabrina did an awesome job. She has a passion for growing Amarillo at the youth level, and I'm really excited to see what this looks like in 5 years after this program has been going. So if you get a chance, go to the talent workshop. You'll be amazed at what's going on. And so there are several more videos like this that are on the website if you want to see them. They were all expertly done, and I mean, it is just amazing what we've got going on in Amarillo. So I want to thank you for coming this morning. What a great audience, and have a great week. And if there's anything that the Amarillo EDC can do, contact us, and we'd love to visit with you about it. So have a great day, and thank you for being here. And thanks again to our sponsors.